How are you doing today, my lazies? This segment is going to be vastly different from what you expect considering the other episodes. This won't be how each Genin handles the Gaara fights, but something a bit more different altogether. I'm excited to get into this one, so with that being said, the first portion of this segment will focus on how the joining in the exams would handle the Gaara situation. Now, I won't be diving into how this affects the narrative, so we're just focused on how they handle possession Gaara. The joining in question, for reference, are Baki, Kakashi, Guy, Kurenai, Asuma, Kabuto, Orochimaru, and Hiruzen. To start off, let's get the cat out of the bag immediately. Hiruzen and Orochimaru stomp with low difficulty. Both are significantly more powerful than Rasa, and he is stronger than every Shukaku Jinchuriki up to that point. Kimimaro was stronger than Rasa, and Orochimaru was significantly stronger than him, while matching Old Man Hiruzen, who was the strongest Kage at the time, even over Onoki. Shouldn't really be a debate here. Moving on to the others though, let's look into the trinity of Kabuto, Kakashi, and Guy. Now, Orochimaru compared Kabuto to Kakashi and Tsunade, and Guy in base is equal to full power Kakashi. So these three are pretty much the same level. As far as how they handle Gaara, all of them would annihilate non-Giant Awakening Gaara. Base Guy smacked away the Sand Shield that took lead using the first gate to fully blitz. I have no doubts that Base Guy is above even Gate of Closing Lee at this time, as even Kakashi was able to track his movement, and they're pretty relative. That being said, the true issue lies with the Giant Awakening, and while all of them are powerful enough to beat Gaara, if he had the same level of power, the size is the true issue. Since Kakashi doesn't have Kamui at this point, it's actually hard to say that he has a way to get around the sheer size of Shukaku. Same with Kabuto, although he can actually use Manda as a summon, as seen in the three-way deadlock of the Sannin when he aided Orochimaru. The only one I can confidently claim can fully get around the sheer size of Shukaku is Guy. The sheer force of his attacks and how powerful his movements are in the Hidden Lotus Gates should be enough for him to not only massively overpower, but get around the sheer size of Shukaku. Getting into the ones that really have no true counter for Gaara, we have Baki, Kurenai, and Asuma. Now Asuma and Baki are the same level as Shinobi, being a rank ninja, but Gaara, even in base, is stronger than Baki, so he's actually a higher tier than Asuma. That being said, Asuma's skill would push Gaara much farther than Baki, considering he's a physical fighter with a boxing style taijutsu and mid-range projectile attacks that can theoretically cut through Gaara's sand. I do believe that Asuma has the physical power to compete with Possession Gaara up to a point, and even damage his armor, considering he has an explosive jutsu stronger than a paper bomb that covers more range, and Naruto used one to weaken his sand at the base. Baki's only jutsu is his hardening, so against Gaara, he'd only be able to tank most of his crushing attacks, then eventually lose due to sheer stamina. Now, the reason I haven't mentioned Kurenai as much is that she's actually a wild card. While I believe she's the weakest of this trio, her specific skill is the only one that can significantly affect Gaara in all forms. Now, you know that perfect Jinchuriki can break out of Genjutsu due to the aid of their Biju. but Gaara doesn't cooperate with his Biju. So there's a high chance that no matter which of them is in control, there's a chance the genjutsu is highly effective. More so, if Shukaku is awakened, since Gaara wouldn't even be conscious. Now, that's a different story if Gaara is trying to use the playing possum and he gets put to sleep with the genjutsu due to that awakening, his Biju disturbing him out of it. That could be a way. Circumstance and Gaara's character will actually give Kurenai the advantage against him. But the main issue is she has no actual power that can harm him or knock him out. Plus, she can't get past the sand. We've seen it activate without him needing to be aware of attacks, and she hasn't shown a feat to suggest she's fast enough or strong enough to get past it. Now, I know this next topic is going to be weird to talk about since I already discussed Stronger Ninja, but I believe these ninja are actually worth mentioning considering their skills. The ninja in question are the Tokubetsu Jonin and Chunin proctors of the exams. Many don't remember, but Ibiki Moreno is actually a Chunin, while Anko Hayate and Genma are Tokubetsu Jonin in the Black Ops. While these ninja prove to be a lower tier and weaker, especially in the case of Hayate, to the Jonin and Tokubetsu listed in the previous section, their skills actually put them above some of the Jonin as far as performance against Gaara. Starting with the weakest, we have the substitute proctor, Genma. This was the proctor from the finals, and the only thing we know about him is that he's a replacement for Hayate and part of a special squad that protects the Hokage using the Flying Raiju. Though we don't know his actual abilities, it's safe to say that most elite Black Ops specialize in intel eradication, even though they're not shown to be very strong unless they're captains in the Anbu. From this assumption, and the fact that he's Guy's former partner, I can only assume he can use physical erasure tactics, considering Guy was a taijutsu specialist on his team along with Ebisu, who is also a taijutsu specialist. Given the intel, I can't say I'm fully confident he could perform similar to base Guy against Gaara and his possessions physically. But I can say, even without knowing the specific abilities, I can confidently assume from what we know of his team that he'd be able to land direct attacks on base Gaara, but would struggle against the possessions a bit and completely get demolished by the Giant Awakening. On to ninja we could actually gauge based on known abilities. Let's start with Hayate. Now, we know that Hayate got destroyed by Baki, so it's safe to assume that base Gaara annihilates him. Even though I believe in tier and strength, Gaara is above Hayate, I believe that unlike Baki, he'd get through the sand shield since we see his speed is so fast that his movements look like after images and his sword techniques are strong enough to cut Baki, whose hardening would be equivalent, if not a bit weaker, than Gaara's sand armor and definitely stronger than his sand shield. I don't see him pressuring the possessions, but I can see him pressuring base Gaara. Moving to someone we know a slight bit more about, at least if you saw him in Shippuden, we have Ibiki Moreno. Now, if you didn't see him fight Pain in Shippuden, you wouldn't know what his ability is. Ibiki is an interrogation specialist, and his jutsu is a torture-style genjutsu that can inflict physical pain. The only reason it didn't hurt Pain is the fact that the body wasn't alive to feel the actual pain. No pun intended. Against Gaara, I see him doing about the same as Hayate, but in a different way. I can see the torture forcing Gaara to use his possessions out of sheer frantic frustration. As for the most powerful of these Tokubetsu, Anko is the only one that actually has a chance against possessed Gaara. However, I don't believe she can get past the sheer size of the Giant Awakenings, even though she has an ability that can get past the durability of all of his forms. The Twin Snake Sacrifice is similar to Danzo's Reverse Tetragram and Minato's Reaper Death Seal. Only difference being there's no chance for one of them to survive if hit. Anko has shown speed akin to Orochimaru, who is definitely faster than base unweighted Lee, who was fast enough to get past the Sand Shield. The fact she could even keep up with him in any capacity is extremely impressive at the first reveal of Orochimaru. That jutsu and her speed alone with the striking Shadow Snake ability give her a massive advantage against base Gaara to pressure him into using possession. Depending on how long she can survive his possessions, she would actually be able to seal all of the non-giant awakenings. On to the portion everyone was expecting. Let's see how each squad of Genin does against Gaara. We already see Team 7, so they will be replaced instead by the Sound 4 or 5 or 6, however many you want to say they have. Since we already know Kankuro and Tamari don't stand a sliver of a chance, they will be replaced with Kimimaro at the time of the infiltration. Starting off, Kimimaro has clearly proven he's more powerful than even the Shukaku, as he's able to easily beat Rasa and his guards solo, who are more powerful than Shukaku Jinchuriki. The biggest question comes with how does he get past the size of Shukaku? We can assume he makes a field of bones like he did in his battle with Gaara and Lee, but that wouldn't even put a dent in the Shukaku due to its size. The only reason I believe Kimimaro loses, even though he's clearly more powerful in sheer stamina, due to his sickness, I can see him overexerting and dying like in their actual battle, but fully bullying any of the other possessions. Adding on to that, the other Sound 4 to 5 don't really have a way to beat him individually, yet together, they actually stand a chance against a giant awakening Gaara. Tayuya and Jirobo would be the biggest players in this battle, as Jirobo can absorb chakra and Tayuya's ghost can affect his soul directly. Sakon and Ukon would get annihilated if they try to connect to his body due to Shukaku and Kirumaro's abilities aren't any help with anything but aiming at Gaara's real body on top of Shukaku. I don't believe he can actually reach even from the top of the tree, but I can see him damaging the smaller awakenings. And also as a bonus, they have the Crimson Force Shield, so that could also seal Gaara or just stop him outright. Going to an interesting team, I believe Team Kurenai fully beat Gaara because I believe Shino can actually beat Gaara alone. His only leverage would be using Kiba and Hinata as bait, and even that wouldn't be enough considering they'd be fighting in a forest and Shino's range is absurd in that terrain. Even in the Giant Awakening, I still believe that this trio can still beat him. I've already discussed multiple times how Shino's bugs consume Jinchuriki chakra, so watch my previous videos on the full extent of his bugs. Onto a team that is stronger than Gaara but can't do anything about the Giant Awakening, we have Team Guy. None of them have the range needed for Giant Awakenings, but they are powerful enough to pressure the other possessions. The final team is an interesting one, as they can actually pressure possess Gaara, just not necessarily beat him. If Choji had his pills at this time, I'd actually consider some win cons. But Ino's range being trash for mind transfer, it's hard to say that this team has a counter for Giant Gaara. And we've already seen how well Team Kakashi battled against Gaara. Naruto and Sasuke wouldn't really work too much as a team, but Naruto alone already beat Gaara, so it's kind of a moot point there. I hope these comparisons were entertaining enough for you. Let me know which one you'd want me to elaborate more on. I had fun doing these team-ups and combat analysis. Thank you for watching. Comment down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to stay lazy.